Welcome to Okon Bros. This is Eric.
And I am Michael. And today we have a very, very special guest with us, Mr. David Kilduff, travel guru,
Ground transportation
ground
guru.
transportation guru, the man with the master plan. So, Eric, kick it off because I know you have this burning desire to talk about car rentals.
Well, obviously we know ground transportation, right? Like that's our wheelhouse. So we're going to do like a deep dive into the ground transportation industry, COVID-19, who's going to make it, who's not going to make it, what companies are doing to survive. And, while we know ground transportation, Michael and I, we don't know a lot about car rentals. So we kind of want to use this as an education opportunity. And I think our listeners would appreciate David's point of view on car rental because he covers all sorts of ground transportation. So I guess the first question would be,
I think the first question is, David, how did you get started in this industry? Most people want to get out of ground travel, but they pulled you back in. Like, how did you get started?
Yeah, give us your
Did
history.
you always want to be in ground transportation since you were, in college? Start with the beginning of your journey.
Sure. What's interesting about that is I've lectured my son not to get into ground transportation. That being said, I'm stuck. I'm here from the early 80s. I actually had a construction company, believe it or not, Monterey, California. I interviewed for a job at Hertz in San Francisco as a sales rep. Got it. Oakland was my first territory, which is, they get you tough, Oakland. And became a regional sales manager. And then when Ford bought Hertz, I became a vice president, moved to Detroit, moved my family from the San Francisco Bay Area. And by the way, I'd never been to Detroit. So it was a little bit of shock because my offices were downtown. So, as I arrived into town, my boss hands me USA Today, and it said, 10 worst cities in America to live in, number 1, Detroit.
Wow.
As I'm driving, he's driving me downtown, right? I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I done to my family? I mean, houses had been burnt. It looked like a war had gone on there, and I had never seen anything like that. That being said, living in the suburbs, Michigan's a gorgeous state, great suburbs, and I actually enjoyed. My youngest daughter was born there, Jenny, and then Hertz moved me to Chicago, and they combined that area. I had everything from New Jersey down before, ended up with 17 states. I was a division vice president for Hertz for 15 years, worked there 21 years, came out, and was kind of wondering what was I going to do next. Should I get out of, ground transportation? Should I get out of the travel industry? And Mike Bolt came to me and said, hey, he was at Rosenbluth. They had just merged with American Express and said, hey, nobody's done ground transportation. We're all doing air and hotel.
And what year was this?
This was probably 17 years ago, 16,
okay.
A little bit after 9/11. And I said, absolutely, there's a business in it, right? And so started the first ground transportation business at American Express. Did that for several years, left, went over to CWT, did the same thing, created theirs. They didn't have one, right? Then I went out on my own.
When you say, hold on one second. When you say you created ground transportation sourcing, what does that mean?
So what we did at American Express, let's go back to the beginning, right? So what we did is we teach corporations, we consult with them how to negotiate, put an RFP out, and look at what car rental companies are doing. So literally how the process works is we put an RFP out, we take a year to 2 years of the prior data and totally rebuild it in an Excel data model, right? Every transaction that happened. Same thing with the chauffeur business, by the way. You take, as many reports as you can get. The chauffeur business is very different because in the rent-a-car business, you've got three really, you got Hertz, Avis, Enterprise, National.
Hertz no more. Hertz no more.
Yeah, no, well,
we're gonna get to that.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
In the chauffeur business, you might have 5 of them that have reports, and there's another 100 where they don't get any information on, right? That the employees just use. So then we put all that together, we rebuild from the agreements, and then we go out and negotiate for the next 1, 2, or 3 years going forward. Everything that is negotiable. Everything from liability coverage to all the car classes to one-ways to VIP programs, and we negotiate all that, right?
Right.
So then we went over to CWT, same thing. And I built that. I was a business owner there. I was an employee and a business owner. I got a certain amount of percentage. You'd call it commission. That's what I was a consultant at American Express. Then about 2010, I went out on my own. And I consulted with shuttle companies, bus companies, Addison Lee Flight Time, where I was consulting as a senior vice president of business development at Flight Time, as an example. And
we're big fans of Tim. We're big fans of Tim. Big shout out to Tim Rose.
What's up, Tim?
Great guy. Great,
fan.
awesome guy.
We still stay in touch. Although, like the rest of you, he's down there in Florida, and there's not a lot of convention business anymore. So.
Yeah, but he's still in Florida, and we're in cold climate.
Yeah, true.
True,
exactly.
You're Chicago, right? You're in Chicago now? Yeah, we're Long Island.
He's winning. He's winning.
100%.
He is winning. There's no doubt about that. So then I went on my own, where I did both. I did large companies. I did their rent-a-car. I've done chauffeur. And currently I am consulting to BCD, where I'm their SME and ground. But I still have my business, DK Consulting Group.
And you write too, right? So you're a writer. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been for, God, I'm going to guess 5 years. Business Travel IQ out of the UK. I was their ground transportation editor. They got subsequently bought by BTN. I've been on tours with BTN talking about autonomous vehicle, actually AI, going into autonomous vehicles, and really, what the future looks like.
You know what I wanted to talk about a bit. How maybe it was foresight, but with what's going on with COVID now, how the big convention, I don't think is going to be coming back. I think it's going to be those micro conventions and those micro meetings that BTN really pioneered, where they have in New York, they have in LA, they have in Chicago, they have in Nashville, they have all over the country these micro buying sessions for suppliers and buyers. And then I don't see how those big conventions like the GBTA are going to come back when companies are not going to want to go and spend minimum $100,000 to go get a booth, to put up all their employees to go do all stuff.
Not at least in the next couple of years.
And go ahead, Eric.
No. Go for it.
So yeah, if you really look at what's going on, I'm a numbers guy, right? That's what I do all day long. I'm in a huge project right now that's like 60 million rent-a-car, and all I do is look at numbers all day long, right? And when I go through those numbers, I see trends. Well, when I look at coronavirus, to me, it's a numbers game, right? There are certain many affected, there are certain many testing, and we can see now that we've got 21 states back in an uptick,
right,
after they've done soft openings, right? The protests certainly aren't helping anything.
Right.
That's hurting travel. I am not a guru. I'm not none of the doctors. I'm not a scientist. But just from my viewpoint, it looks like what you just said, that this virus is going to be around forever. Now, trace testing will certainly help. But I think, sorry about that.
If you have to get that, it's fine. Good.
Yeah, no, I just thought I turned it on. Plug it, that'll do it. Anyway, back to where the BTN groups, because I actually traveled all through the United States and into Canada. I did it for a year and a half almost. Those are fabulous groups. Very concentrated, because suppliers.
Big shout out to Lou at BTN.
Yeah, Lou's a good buddy. They did a great job on it, and David, who runs it, a fabulous job, because it's not a bunch of suppliers there. The only suppliers that are allowed are the ones that are, that are sponsoring. That's it. You've got 30 very concentrated education, great content. So yeah, I'm a big fan.
I got to tell you, we went to GBTA. We never did these big trade shows. We never believed in it. Our father, especially, he just was not into GBTA, the limo show. You know, our dad was old school, and he didn't want to be a part of GBTA. And then when he passed, we did GBTA in San Diego, and then we did GBTA in Chicago, and we felt that the buyer space was, so every other booth was a limousine service, right? So you're competing with every other limousine service in every other state around America. It was stupid. Then when we sponsored a BTN event in Chicago, that made the difference. And then when we started going to these BTN conferences, like we did BTN Innovate last year, it was a mini GBTA with just us there.
Right.
And it made the difference. It was face to face. We paid to be there. We paid to sponsor it.
Sure.
And it made the difference. Where GBTA, in my opinion, nothing against GBTA. I think they're a great organization.
You're a line item, but it truly
you're
is.
A line item, and you're a needle in a haystack in that convention.
But it's what you make of it. It's what connections you build before you go.
Right, and it's also meeting your current clients and meeting old friends.
There is value in all of it.
100%. Yes.
I don't see how that mega convention is going to be worthwhile right now.
No, I think it's there's a couple things, right? I don't think you can bring a large group of people, not now, and I don't know when. So even then, it's going to be reduced, right? Yeah. Secondly, I mean, I've gone to GBTA for, oh my God, 20-something years plus. It's a beehive. And to your point, it used to be where,
great word,
years ago, you could go just walk into a tent, you could walk up to somebody and talk to them. And now it's a madhouse. You have to have appointments.
Yep.
And really to get in front of anybody is just, you have to know somebody to get an appointment.
Yep.
And even then, you can't set many because they're far apart. It's great education. It's good for somebody. I think you have to show up just to show up, but your ROI is not very good. That's
100%. And people aren't going to be spending $100,000. I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
It's to us, it's the holistic picture. If you're not going to have a social media game, you're not going to have a good GBTA. If you're not going to have a sales team that's constantly in touch with these people throughout the year, you're not going to have a GBTA. If you're just going to go to GBTA as a supplier and say, hey, I'm here, I'm a limo service in Chicago, no one's going to know you. If you're not getting, it's all, the whole year culminates to a GBTA.
Right.
And those smaller BTN events, they kind of
I found better for us. Yeah.
They work in tandem though with GBTA because you actually get an opportunity to meet them at the smaller events, and then when you see them at the GBTA event, it's the familiarity, and then they see you online, and then they see you all, like, none of this is a secret. It takes work. There's no doubt about it. But it's
for ground travel services that have one city, you know, and they're trying to compete in the global marketplace. I don't see it working, to be honest. I really don't. I mean, I couldn't imagine having one city going to GBTA once a year and getting 100 stacks of business cards. It just, I don't find it as beneficial, and the ROI is, we did that 1 year. It was back in, like, when I came into the company, I came in 2000. And I said to my dad,
because we didn't.
It was a waste of time, right?
Yeah.
We had a booth. We sent 2 people there, and it was like, yes, they came back with. My dad always said they came back with a stack of business cards, which translated to nothing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I was at Hertz, we spent a tremendous amount of money to be right there up front, but honestly, we didn't get any business out of it. What we learned was how our salespeople were doing, because certainly the customers would come up, and we had great giveaways, so we sucked them in. And quite frankly, we would hear how our salespeople were doing, whether they were covering the counter line, but getting new business, absolutely not.
I got to tell you something. I got to tell you a real quick story, and I love that we're talking about this now. We sponsored this BTN. It was a dinner last night. The Travel Manager of the Year.
Travel Manager of the Year, which
in Chicago. It was incredible. It was incredible. You were there? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, you looked familiar.
Yeah.
It was this wonderful event in this, like, Beauty and the Beast type hall setting in Chicago. It was so cool. And it was every buyer there, right? And us. Okay. And there was a woman, I'm not going to reveal her name because she's a client now, and we don't like to reveal clients unless they're okay with it. But there was a woman there, and she walked by me, and I saw her name tag. And it was something that my son was obsessed with. It was a, a product. No,
yeah.
I'm not saying shit. Believe me, I'm not saying. It was a product that my son loves, okay, like obsessed with. So I looked at her tag and I said, my son is obsessed with your product. And she goes, oh my God. She had a drink in her hand, completely let down her guard. I'm like, by the way, I own a global ground travel service. She's like, I'm interested. She says, I've been going to these things for 20 years and no one has ever came and approached me and said, where I work, my son, my son is obsessed with it. It was so natural. It wasn't like, I'm a sales guy, like it was nothing like that.
You can strike lightning in a bottle sometimes at these.
That happened twice that night, by the way.
At these events,
right?
But like you have to have a good pickup game.
There was a food corporation. There was a food corporation, a travel manager for a food company.
And I said,
my brother walked up.
I walked up to them,
I lost 80 pounds eating your cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
I got
and we got it. We got the account.
I got a similar story. Okay, I'm at ACT in, I think it was Atlanta, right?
Yeah. And
it was really hot. It was summertime or something. Anyway, just had a break. I was super thirsty. I got an ice cold Diet Coke. So I sit down. We're in one of the educational forums, and I am just guzzling this, Diet Coke. Like, oh my God, I love this Diet Coke, right? The person next to me goes, I work for Coca-Cola. Right?
So funny.
And same thing, struck the relationship.
Yep.
And got, ended up, it was beneficial, but pure luck, right?
We got business walking up to people saying, I love your video game. Right? Like it was a video game maker. I play your video game every single night with my brother. And she's like, oh, really? I'm like, by the way, I own a global car service. We'd love to work with you. She's like, here's my card. Call me. And it didn't work at the booths. The booths.
It was everything but the booth.
It was everything but the booth. It's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's
after
exactly
hours,
right.
You can do more.
100%.
After hours, when you're out just being you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think people have their guards up. They're there to get goodies, get a little information. If they are out to bid, they'll take your car and it might benefit. But I certainly don't, I am not saying not go to GBTA, but I think the GBTAs of the world are going to change. If this coronavirus is around as long as everybody says, minimum like 3 years.
You got to go. You have to go.
It's going to look different. It's got to look different. And unfortunately for GBTA, they make a ton of money on that floor, right? That's where 80% of their income comes in. So GPA is going to have to change, and that's it's just a fact. I think everything's going to change.
They're gonna modify. They're gonna go to the micro conventions. They're gonna have 200 buyers and 1,000 people come in to one hotel. They're not gonna leave the place. It's gonna be for one day only, and it works. It's gonna be successful, but it's that 2 hours that you're on the show floor means nothing. It's the 364 days a year leading up to that you have to build up your game to nail it down there.
Exactly.
So
we have to go back to rent-a-car because we want to focus on that. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no. So regarding rent-a-car, COVID-19, what do you think? What's going on now, and what's the next year of rent-a-car going to look like? Because the rent-a-car companies do not look healthy right now.
Well, going into it, so the economy was doing obviously extremely well before COVID-19. At that time, both Hertz and Avis had a lot of debt. Hertz more so, right? Hertz, unfortunately, had a VC come in, buy them, put a tremendous amount of debt on them. And then they subsequently had CEOs that just did not work from the business, didn't know how to run the business, and ran the business into the ground in the next several years. National enterprise benefiting from it greatly. During that time, that 10+ year period, EHI, which is, National Enterprise Holdings, the National Enterprise brand just blew up, grew tremendously. Where today they're like $26 billion and have somewhere around 2 million cars. That's more than all rent-a-car companies combined. Hertz was just chugging along, was having financial problems in the best of times. So there was no way if the environment changed, which the environment didn't just change, it fell off a cliff, right? And that's just not sustainable. Now, that being said, Hertz, and right now we have Hertz and Advantage in Chapter 11. It's not 7, but it's 11, which means they have the ability to restructure. They have the ability to negotiate whom they owe money to, right? Oddly enough, because I thought they were going to be knocked off the stock exchange. Oddly enough, they weren't, and they ended up selling 500 more shares. And they actually, if you would have invested in them 2 weeks ago, I think
10 grand. 10 grand in Hertz the day they declared bankruptcy.
Yes.
10 measly $1,000, which is, a lot of money to some people, not a lot of money to us.
Yes.
It would be like $150,000 or like
no way. Really?
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
more. I think it's more. I think it's like 800 grand or something like that.
Oh yeah.
The stock shot up
The stock
Why?
shot up to $6.
because it's the stock market. Because nobody gets it except 5 people on planet Earth.
Well, there's a few people that think it's just like Robin Hooders, a lot of day traders that did it. There's actually people not quite understanding it. But Hertz ended up releasing 500,000 new shares, which almost makes it worthless, right? So, I mean, you could go out there and throw money into it and hope that it doesn't get delisted, but it's a danger. That being said, it's end of the day, Hertz has a great client base. It's one of the best names in the business, right? So nobody's going to let that go under. It's not something that would go away. That being said, the entire industry, Avis has a bit of debt. Enterprise has probably 1.8 million cars that are just sitting in stadiums somewhere because there's just not that much. So you have a massive amount of fixed costs and the business is just not coming in. Okay, it's just not. They're not as bad as chauffeurs. Like someone like Enterprise has some government contracts and their city network, the Enterprise locations, those are still doing business, remember, because that's auto replacement, right? When your car's being repaired and that type of thing. So that's still going. Hertz has a little of that. Avis has a tiny bit of that. But just the regular public, I think a little's picking up with the states that are opening on leisure travel, but corporate travel, pretty dead.
Yeah.
That being said, as corporations start coming back, regional travel, okay, I think, right now there's a problem, at least perceived problem, about getting on an airplane. Because even 60% full is not CDC safe. A guy with the empty seat, you can still take your right arm and slap him in the face. That's not coronavirus safe, right? And I think a lot of perception is I'm not going to fly. However, if you're in Chicago, you can drive to Detroit, Milwaukee, Cincinnati, Indianapolis. You can drive down to Florida if you want, right?
There's a lot of opportunity for ground transportation to fill that gap, whether it's chauffeur car.
Right.
In the top 5 questions on any RFP that I've ever filled out or my team and I have filled out has been, have you ever declared bankruptcy? Hertz is going to have to answer yes to that now.
Yes, they are.
Do you feel that the corporate business, when it does come back, is going to migrate from Hertz to, Enterprise?
Well, years ago, I can't remember what year, National Car Rental went bankrupt. Okay. Now they ended up getting bought by Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
So they, at the time of bankruptcy, had a lot of service issues. Okay. But remember, it was in a different environment. People were still traveling back then. Okay. They had a lot of service issues, but once they got bought, now look at them today. They are the industry leader.
Sure.
Okay? Bigger, better than everybody out there, more profitable. Enterprise is privately held by the Taylor Company, and they're very smart people. They've done well. However, they have massive amount of fixed costs. They've got millions of cars that are just sitting there not doing anything and have all that land that they have to pay for. But so do all car rental companies. So going forward, when Hertz gets out of this, and they will, they're going to be debt free. How their service issues are, though, is questionable. Don't know, right? I mean, everything's questionable going forward. And the whole rent-a-car industry there, just the longer this goes, the more pain. But that goes for chauffeur companies too, you know that.
So let's talk chauffeured. I mean, you know, it's not coming back as quick as anybody hoped, obviously.
No.
And, you know, like you said, I think that car rental companies are in a little bit of a better spot because while they're down in revenue, they're still doing 800 million a year or whatever number it is that whatever number that it is that they're doing, they still have some type of revenue coming in. You know, probably the best limousine service in the world right now is doing 100 rides a day.
Right.
So, and that's no revenue. So it's very questionable as to how, you know, I think that if corporate travel comes back now and it starts trickling up and it continues to trickle up, I think everybody's going to be fine. But if there is going to be a second wave of COVID, that is the wild card because everybody borrowed money now. The question is everybody going to be able to borrow money again? That's the problem.
Well, I mean, I'll answer that in a couple ways. One, if you look at the airlines were bailed out, okay? Car rental companies weren't. Now, they did not, I mean, they didn't qualify for SBA loans or PPP, right? Because they're too big, nor did they get the money that the airlines got. So they're in that position. But to your point, business-wise, they're a little better off. Chauffeur companies, on the other hand, you know, the SBA and the PPP loans came out, and they just got improved, as you and I know.
Right.
However, not everybody qualified for that. Not to mention, that's not a gift. I find it, you know, it's meant to bring employees back. Why would you bring employees back when you have zero revenue? You might bring a handful, but then the rest of it turns into a loan, right? And it's been, extended 5 years. But it's not forgiving. So what happens 6 months from now, unless another package comes out? Now you've got companies that are highly in debt. They're more in debt. And I'm going to call it a Band-Aid because it's nothing but a Band-Aid. If you're looking at a 3-year period,
it's a Band-Aid. It's a Band-Aid on like a coronary artery. You know.
Yeah, on a coronary.
Yeah.
I mean, what people don't understand is the chauffeur industry is made up of small businesses, right?
Yep.
And like most Americans, we're living in high debt. They were not highly profitable because you've got Uber and Lyft who've been subsidized for the last 10 years, decimating this industry. They don't play fair. They don't have to drug and alcohol test. They don't have to do an FBI fingerprint background check. And they're pricing subsidized. How do you compete with that for a 10-year period? It's difficult, and it's actually amazing how long the chauffeur industry has actually stood up against it, because duty of care, thank God, is important to corporations. And that's, in my opinion, how it stood up. Going forward, I see a lot of chauffeur companies going out of business, consolidation, and the longer this goes, once again, it's the same thing in the rent grants. Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be very different, but it's not going to be good long term.
I agree. I think a lot of the companies that were leveraged before COVID happened are in really deep shit, you know, and the ones that bought other companies to get into different industries, you know, they didn't do that with their own money because you don't make a lot of money.
You don't make that type of money in this business.
You don't make that type of money in this industry where you could save up hundreds of millions of dollars and buy other companies. Everything is done with loans and debt. And I think it's stupid. It doesn't work. You know,
Right.
It doesn't work. Especially in our industry, you have to play it so tight and so aggressive because it's the margins are so slim.
Sure.
You know,
the costs are so high.
The cost is astronomical, especially when you're in New York and LA,
Right.
where, you know, you're paying what you're paying, and then the overtime, then the double time. It's and then the lawsuits, and then the regulations,
and then COVID-19.
And then COVID-19 hit, right? That's exactly right. So like these companies that go on these buying sprees because they have investor money, I don't see how they're getting out of this.
It hasn't worked yet. Bringing investors into chauffeured
One of the largest
worked yet.
One of the largest, we're not bad mouthing anyone, but one of the largest companies is teetering. One of the largest companies in the world is teetering
in our industry.
in chauffeured ground.
Well, I got
And
news for you in all ground transportation. How would you like to be a bus guy right now?
forget it.
I think buses aren't even moving.
That equipment is so expensive.
Oh yeah, 500,000 for a new bus.
Yeah,
that's sitting.
And that's the whole point. And that's what, we were just talking with a guy, and he was like, he wanted to get educated on ground transportation and Uber and stuff like that. So we were just telling him that, like, to transport people costs money.
Absolutely.
It's expensive to transport people, especially one-to-one. That's why chauffeured car is considered a luxury. That's why 99% of those companies, they all say luxury chauffeured ground transportation, because it's expensive. If you want cheap transportation, take a bus or a train, or walk or ride a bicycle. That is cheap transportation.
I love how Uber made this luxury on-demand.
You go rent a car. You can go rent a car for $35 a day somewhere, $100 a day. That's pretty cheap transportation. But Uber is going in with these $8 rides that they're subsidizing, and it doesn't work.
And to preface, the only company that we could absolutely collectively bash is Uber and Lyft, because they're just beyond pathetic. What they did to the industry. Listen, they didn't affect us in certain markets. We increased our business in certain markets, but in Vegas, our business got hammered because it's all transient and it's all hotel work. So any of those companies that do hotel work, they got annihilated by Uber. I don't care who you are. I don't care the most luxurious brands in the world. There's people still Ubering cars. I think that's going to change. But the hotels aren't even, like, they're opening up these hotels in Vegas, they're opening up one wing of the hotel for this. Like, it's just, it's silly. And Uber, I honestly don't see how Uber's going to get out of this. And everything now is about safety, right? Safety. It was safety before, but now it's really, really about safety. That you're getting out of a BLS car and you're not going to get COVID, right? Uber can't do that. The drivers are going to.
Yeah, that
driver owns the car. He's not gonna clean that car in between an $8 ride. Good luck. I don't even have the Uber app. I own a car service. Okay, yeah, call me an ass. Like, I own a car service. I use my own car service. I wouldn't put my kids in an Uber if we were stranded.
I would much sooner put them in a taxi.
100%.
That's for damn sure.
100%. Not an Uber.
Taxi. I've always been an advocate of duty of care. It's like, why would you ever get on an airplane where the pilot wasn't drug and alcohol tested or had an FBI fingerprint background? You wouldn't.
Exactly.
Best example.
But chauffeured car always gets the shit end of the stick. But it's guys like David, and honestly, this podcast too, where it's educating clients on the importance of ground travel, and it's not easy. Pricing car service, as you do the RFPs.
Sure.
This stuff is hard. Pricing art, because it's unlimited. It's unlimited. You can have 5,000 rates. But let me tell you something, that one guy is going to that 5,001 rate group that you didn't plan for, and the rate is not going to be in your system, and it's not.
And they're going to scream.
And they're going to scream, and it's that is the hardest part of consolidating ground travel, is the pricing.
Right.
Because there's so many combinations. Any combination. And you can't police that. When it's a car rental, you're picking it from the airport. It's $35 a day. Go ahead.
Sure.
That's the.
So, David, where do you see our industry? Like, where do you see consolidation, specifically chauffeured car?
I think that, and I want to jump back to Uber and Lyft, because they impact this industry so much, right? So back to your comments. I've heard from a lot of travel managers now, because I've always said duty of care, and I'm changing it now. I have duty of care and then duty of health and wellness.
100%.
Health and wellness now is paramount, right? Because there is corporate liability. They are trying to decide that in the courts, how much is a corporation going to be liable when they send their employees out? Are they going to give them a choice? If they force them and they die horribly, but if they die and get COVID-19, who's liable, right? Can they come back to the corporation. So corporations, there's not only that, there's the morality of it, right? I mean, you have to think of the morality of how you have to treat your people. That being said, you're going to have to pay attention to health and wellness duty of care going forward. Uber and Lyft are going in, but to your point, guys, I write for a living, which we talked about. And if I'm going to write about Uber and Lyft, I ride them, right? And I mean, I've gotten in 3 or 4. I've got my blue gloves, I've got my mask on, and every one of them I've asked, do you clean after the ride? And they say no. No. Are you kidding? I mean, one of them laughed at me. So even though they are, I'm sure they're telling their people to do, realistically, they're not. They're, you know, they've got a 10-minute ride. The next guy's 5 minutes away. Really? They're going to pull the car over and wash it?
Wipe it down, right. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's the reality of it. And Uber and Lyft have to answer that. Also, they're subsidized, right? And they've been losing billions. They've been on the stock market, and actually, for the life of me, I don't understand how it's as high as it is. But the food service business is not profitable. They cannot continue at the pricing that they price to exist. They cannot continue to lose billions of dollars. They're actually getting into the rent-a-car business in Los Angeles and San Francisco. And once again, the deals that I've heard, I'm not going to give them away, are losses. So I don't understand how you make money without raising pricing.
But if you raise pricing,
no one's going to use you.
No one's going to use it. They're going to go back. They're going to go back to the train and the bus.
I've said this from day one, and we were talking to a friend of ours before we got on this podcast, and he said it probably because I said it to him a year ago. Uber has to close up everywhere. They have to Uber, Lyft, and they need like 5 or 6 markets, right? The big ones: London, New York, LA. 10 markets: London, New York, LA. You know, Chicago, Miami, maybe Toronto, Washington, D.C., Paris, Hong Kong. And that's about it, right?
And then they would be like a regular old chauffeured car service.
Right. And then they would raise their rates. They'd be on demand in those top 8 to 10 cities around the world. And they would be, and their stock price would go up, and there'd be return for the investors. But
they would do $300-400 million a year. They would.
No offense to Chattanooga. What the fuck is Uber doing in Chattanooga? You know, I think it's a lovely place. I've never been, but like, why is Uber in Savannah, Georgia? No offense to Savannah, Georgia. That's a gorgeous city. Why is there Uber there? You're not going to make money there. So, but this is the divide and conquer. You know, Travis Kalanick's claim to fame of going shoot first, can ask questions later. They were shooting first, but it was backfiring on them.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they were about a footprint, right? They were about bringing investors on. It's a pyramid thing, right? Bring investors,
100%.
More money on the front as it's flowing out the back as fast as you throw it, actually faster flowing out the back. That being said, they've got to do something. But let's parlay into the chauffeur business. I think that the chauffeur business going forward, you're going to end up with the smartest and the best financially backed companies going forward.
100%.
Somebody's going to survive. Always do, right? I mean, it's just human nature, right? It's Darwinism, actually, if you look at it. And those clients are going to shift, right? Because service is still paramount in this business. You have to show up, okay? That's paramount.
That's it.
You got to show up. That's exactly right.
Duty of care and duty of health and wellness. And if you nail those 3, you're not only going to survive, but you're going to thrive. But it's going to look different. It's going to feel different. I think there's just going to be a lot less players, and somebody like yourselves that are, you know, well financially backed, doing things smart, have a great opportunity to grow. So
no doubt, we smell blood in the water. You know, no doubt about that, and we're taking advantage of that. So, you know, like you said,
we picked up some wonderful salespeople in the worst crisis in the history of our country.
Right.
We picked up these salespeople who have shaped and changed these mega corporations, but we're doing it the BLS way. We're not doing it, you know, success leaves clues, and clearly these companies that are teetering on the brink of bankruptcy are not successful, right? So we're doing it the way we feel is going to be successful for us, and it's our business model. And so far,
it's
not going to work.
You know, there's a reason why the most successful car services are all mom and pops.
Right.
There's a reason why, because
Family owned and operated.
family owned and operated limousine services are going to be fine. And you can see it. You see it on LinkedIn. You hear the chatter in the industry. You hear it from one person to the other of what the companies are doing, and the guys who are all family owned, where they bought their own properties, their uncle is the CFO, their aunt is doing the sales, their kids are in the business, the brother-in-law is the mechanic. Those services are going to be fine.
I agree.
And they're going to take over. The ones that were leveraged, that took on investor money.
Investor money to become the next Hertz. But look at Hertz.
All right. Exactly.
Right?
I mean, the debt, you cannot, especially going forward, if you're taking this debt on, it's debt, guys. I mean, the SBA money's debt, right? I mean, some of it's forgiven. I get that. But anything that's not forgiven is debt. And unless you have a good plan for that, you either make hay with it or it helps. It's just another rock to drown you as you jump off the side of the cliff there.
What do you think about social media in your industry, in our industry? Do you feel that the use of social media has helped your career? Do you feel it's hindered it? I mean, Eric and I have our own agreements and disagreements about social media, but I want to hear what you have to say about how social media affected you.
For me personally, I think it is an avenue for my voice, and I think you guys, we've talked before, where I've been criticized for hanging my hat on duty of care. I just so firmly believe.
You're 100% right, though. That's the only thing that separates us from the beast.
Exactly. And that it's not that, I realize the world's not fair, right? And you could say that with Uber and Lyft. Once again, going back, they're playing on an unfair playing field, right? They're doing things they shouldn't, but they are what they are, and you have to deal with that. Going forward, long term, they will not last the way they do. And whoever benefits are the people that are not taking on massive debt, but are being smart about the business and smart about what clients they take, at what price they take it at, and have a business that may not be wildly profitable, but profitable going forward.
Listen, I've always said you can make a great living owning a limousine service.
Right.
You can live a great life, but
you're not going to be a billionaire.
You're not going to be a billionaire.
No, well, I'm not going to be one. So.
And that's fine. But you know what?
Travis Kalanick became a billionaire because of Uber, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, but he's obviously.
He struck lightning. He struck lightning, broke laws. I mean, quite frankly, out and out broke laws. And he was a disruptor. And he will go down and make a lot of money and get away with it while a whole industry is almost being destroyed. That's the taxi and chauffeur industry. Rent-a-car industry wasn't hurt that bad by it, quite frankly. No. But certainly the chauffeur and taxi industry has.
I heard that Rent-a-car did get affected by Uber. I mean, there's some company in Los Angeles that they were really affected by Uber.
Yeah, so, maybe smaller ones.
Right.
The big ones, it took a lot of the one-day business away, which is not profitable. A rent-a-car company can't charge enough for a one-day rental. I mean, honestly, a car rental company would have to charge $100 a day to make money on a one-day rental. They make their money on the long-term business.
Sure.
So, but yeah, going forward, the whole industry is going to have to deal with this new normal, which nobody knows what it's going to look like. It may not be a U, it may not be a V, it may not even be a W.
Who the fuck knows?
You just don't know. I mean, those are for some reason everybody wants to put it into those three categories. I'm not necessarily a guy who says that. I say the virus, trace testing, and certainly the vaccine will dictate all that.
If you could, your voice now is going to be heard by the entire ground travel industry. What would you tell smaller companies? If BLS is one of the bigger guys, right? Like we have multiple locations. What could you tell a mom and pop in a one city location? What could you, in Chicago? What would you tell them? What should they be doing for their clients, for their employees in the post-COVID era?
Well, I mean, that's a really loaded question because you're talking about a vacuum that question is asking. I don't know financially where they're at the point of your question, right?
Right.
So, I mean, if they're okay at that point.
Assuming they're going to survive, David.
Okay,
Assuming they're going to survive and,
right.
they own the building they're in, so they remortgage the building, they got their PPP money. What do you tell the mom and pop in the one city to do?
Well, back to your social media question, right? I would say use social media. And I would also say you're going to need to create business, right? Because if you're relying and just sitting around waiting on business as it was pre-COVID-19, you're going to starve. You're going to have to go out and create business and bring in business, one from whatever business is out there, right? To get them to recognize who you are. But beyond that, create something that didn't exist before.
That's we live by that creed: create, don't compete.
Right.
And we have these people that compete with us, and all they're doing is just competing with themselves. It really, everyone fills out an RFP. You give your best, but you create your own. You create the market for what you're in.
So, I want to settle this debate right now.
Uh-oh.
Divider or no divider in the car?
Divider to me. It's like not even questionable to me.
I agree. I mean, it's just how in good conscience could we go and send out a chauffeur that has 3 kids without every tool available to help keep him safe?
Yeah, I'm going to throw something out right now. I mean, everybody's talking about Black Lives Matter, chauffeur lives matter.
Oh, that's good.
Right? And they do.
That's good.
And in all fairness to chauffeurs, we don't know because, I mean, human beings, here's one of the things I noticed, right, is that young people, if you watch out there in this coronavirus, because they've been told they're not going to probably die, think they're impervious to this thing, right, and are going out there. They could have COVID-19 and be riding in that car and infect a chauffeur and him take it home to his family. So I think that shield is excellent. It's a great idea. It's protection for both, by the way, and that I think it's a must. And not to mention more than that, mentally, I'm happier getting in the car. I'm not
100%.
I got that shield up.
We can't figure out the companies that don't want to put in divider. That's fine, and for their idiotic excuses to say why this divider shouldn't be in the cars. I mean, we didn't tell our clients, you shouldn't be using a company without a divider, but we're putting dividers in our cars. The other companies are saying you shouldn't be using cars with dividers. Like, really? Like if people think you're going to stop someone from getting into a car with a divider, like they're moronic.
Right.
Me personally, for my family, for Eric's family, I would only get into a car with a divider. We're doing what we would do for our families, right? And our clients, we're finding out now, are requesting them. Does this car have a divider?
Right.
That's picking me up at the airport.
Right.
This is the consensus of all of our clients. Now, maybe it's our industry that we're in that people are saying, I only want dividers, and the other guy's industry doesn't want dividers. But I asked we got 3 questions in the last 2 months that, we heard dividers weren't so good. And I said, question, our car pulls up to your house with a divider right now, and the other guy's car pulls up to your house without a divider. In the age of COVID, whose car do you get into? And they go, I would only use a car with a divider. We said, I guess you answered your own question then.
The CDC recommends it. It's on the CDC recommendation list.
The TLC recommends it.
And the TLC has approved manufacturers.
Well, yeah. Well, then why when you go to Whole Foods, is there a shield?
Exactly.
I mean, because it doesn't work.
I don't know, but it's good for the other guys. All right, it's good. You don't want dividers in your cars?
Well,
don't put them in.
Cost issue too. Why?
Of course, it's a cost issue.
Whatever. I mean,
of course, it's a cost issue.
Error on safety. Once again,
100%.
I'm a safety guy.
We've done hundreds of phone calls, and we've showed the dividers to hundreds of clients, and only 3 questioned it. And we asked them that question: with a divider or without at your house right now? Oh, only with a divider. Okay, so you answer your own question. So we're batting 1,000 with the dividers.
Right.
So far, not one person has said, "Do not send me a car with a divider. It's unsafe."
Right.
No one. Not one of our clients has done that, but
well, I'm sure. I know some of them are removable. somebody wanted
Ours are,
Yes.
yeah,
Ours are too. It's a Velcro strap.
But once
all
again,
30 seconds to take off.
what about the chauffeur's right?
Exactly. That's
Right.
that's
The
exactly.
virus moves forward. The virus doesn't move back.
Right.
Okay. And the people in the back of the car don't want to wear masks. They feel safe. And if they're not going to wear a mask and there's no shield, our driver can get sick. And that's
Well,
not
exactly.
working.
When a person gets into the car, they've got a mask because it's required, right? But now they want to make a phone call. Do you think they're not going to take the mask off? They're going to take the mask off.
Passengers, I would be surprised that if it's a 50-50 shot of whether they're going to be wearing the mask or not. And
Right.
that's why those dividers are there. And you're right, it's about the chauffeur's right.
Well, let's go back to the statistics, right? World Health Organization says 1.3 million people are killed every year in an automobile accident. So one, that's duty of care, right? But I always make human beings think they're not going to be the statistic, right?
Sure.
You would never get on an airplane if there were that many crashes, right? On an airplane, people killed.
That's the Uber statistic. I'm sorry, David, but that's the Uber statistic. I think like 8,000 cases of sexual harassment in Uber cars, right?
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah.
And so I said, can you imagine, Eric, JetBlue, which we've flown so frequently.
Only 3 people a day get molested on our airplanes.
On JetBlue flights.
Only 3 people a day. Everything's great.
People are still using Uber.
97% of the people are safe.
97% of the time, the plane's not going to crash.
Every 100,
right?
That 3%, it's fine.
It'll be fine.
Here's a white paper.
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell our audience where they can find you. Give your LinkedIn. Give your, where can our vendors connect with you? Where can, our listeners connect with you if they would like to retain your services? Go for the gold. Advertise yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Couple of my articles are there. The others are in Business Travel IQ. If you go to, and I actually don't know if the site's still up. I would assume it is, right? But it's the internet, so everything still lives out there in the internet.
Sure.
I mean, I say just go to LinkedIn because I have everything there. Because I have my phone number there, I have my email there. You can see it all on my LinkedIn. I don't have a website, never have. I've gone word of mouth.
It's amazing.
And I've lived.
That's amazing.
So.
Well, David, thank you for coming.
David, that was great.
It was a pleasure. And hang out for 1 second. I'm gonna sign off. But
everybody, subscribe, leave comments down below, share this with all the other ground transportation gurus in our industry. Thank you all. Be safe.
Peace out, everybody.
Thanks,
Later.
Guys.
Bye-bye.